I, ladies and gentlemen, am an ex-Christian who just so happens to yearn for an afterlife. Am I wrong for that? I struggle with finding, of course, my title, quote unquote, my label. A lot of people would consider them an atheist or, a theist. And I just find myself not really resonating with these particular terms. And in a previous video, I kind of explained exactly why it is that I don't really find myself like, I don't know, being identified or feeling identified with these particular labels. And I am definitely going to upload a video on the broader explanation as to why that is. I'm pretty sure I'm going to upload it on Wednesday. Stay tuned. But I wanted to talk about something else. I feel like a lot of course, deconstructionists, ex-Christians, aren't really as vulnerable when, of course, talking about the effects of the indoctrination that they got growing up as children and being indoctrinated as Christians. And I think, one thing that I've always wanted to talk about is the fact that I yearn for an afterlife. I know a lot of people say things like, there's Richard Dawkins. I remember he once said that he believes that, when he dies, he shall just rot in his grave and nothing of him will remain because, of course, that's all that there is to us, that we're just material, machines and with chemical reactions. And what was I even saying? I think, when people talk about how they deconstruct from Christianity and they become comfortable with the thought of not having an afterlife, I'm just not one of those people. I was very much indoctrinated into not caring about my life in this particular lifetime. I don't know if anybody relates to this, but I think when I was Christian, I used to get sick all the time. I used to have a lot of chronic diseases, and one of the things that I always that kept me positive was the fact that I didn't care about death as much, because I thought, even if I die here, like, all I have to do is then scold at God or yell at God when I'm in heaven and say things like, oh yeah, you took my life and my parents are crying, this is all your fault. But at least I wasn't worried about like not existing anymore, because I always felt as though the self continued somewhere else. And after, of course, being given a reality check, I don't know what to do with that. I don't know what to do with my life anymore, because I was living for something when I was Christian, quote unquote, and that something was something beyond this existence. And now that, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who struggles with this. I'm pretty sure that's exactly why a lot of people tend to go towards spirituality and whatnot. But I used to think, like, why am I living for now, right? Like, yeah, I exist right now. I could do a lot of good things in this particular, right, like in this particular realm, quote unquote, in this particular existence. But I always feel like it's futile. It feels like such a useless existence, right? A lot of people say, like, yeah, it's not necessarily useless. I feel like that's the wrong term. It just feels, I don't know how to put this into words. It feels futile. It feels performative. It feels like we're just existing for the sake of existing. And if this is all an accident, right, then what exactly are we performing for? Why are we trying to live and have good lives anyways? And like, even if you do have good lives, like, it ends, it ends, and that's it, right? Like, that's it. Even if you have a bad life, even if you have a good life, it ends. And the thought of it ending, right, just I don't know, it just fucks me up. I can't be the only person who struggles with this, right? Because what's the fucking point of all of this? Like, even, it's not like it would be any better, for instance, if, like, somebody told you that, like, God created you, and God created you for a particular purpose, like, taking a shovel and fucking digging a hole. Would you find that more meaningful? I'm pretty sure not, right? To a certain degree, all you'd feel is a sense of security that you're not here on an, like, accident. It feels like, and I'm about to upload a video about this as well, like, it feels like being adopted, right? Like, and then your adoptive parents telling you that your actual parents didn't take care of you or didn't raise you up because, like, you were an accident, you were a mistake. That's what it feels like. It feels like a slap in the face. That's what it feels like, after deconstructing from Christianity. And I'm pretty sure this is, like, of course, top tier religious trauma and indoctrination, of course. But yeah, I can't be the only one. I just wanted to rant about this for a second. Like, I feel like it's all meaningless. Like, in all aspects. I feel like even if you're a Christian, right, like, it's still meaningless. Because it's like, yeah, God created you for a particular purpose. And all you're supposed to do is whatever he wants you to do. Like, it's such fucking ridiculous shit. But I feel like it just became worse when I realized, if this is the only lifetime that I have, now I have to take full advantage of it, because this is the only existence that I have, right? Like, a long time ago, I didn't care about that. I'm a very introverted person, right? I don't do a lot of things. I don't go out to parties. I don't do the whole, I'm not as social as a lot of people probably would like to think of me. But I used to think, like, I didn't have a problem with that, right? Like, I didn't have a problem with, like, not being social, because I always thought, like, I continue somewhere else. I could try a different lifetime, you know, like, I could try, and, like, if this fucking lifetime doesn't work out for me, like, another lifetime will work out for me, right? Like, as a 20-year-old, I feel like it's just dreadful, you know, it's dreadful when you get slapped in the face with something different than what you've been taught your whole entire life. And there was a security that you felt when you were a Christian, you know, you're like, well, it continues, even if it's hell, you know, like, you still feel like, yeah, it's hell, at least it's still another form of lifetime. It's suffering, but you still exist. And I'm not sure that makes it any better, honestly, to be quite frank with you. But yeah, that's what I used to feel like. You know, I used to feel like there was a sense of security that I could, not that I could do anything that I wanted to do, but even if I didn't take care of my health, right, because I was the worst at taking care of my health when I was Christian, because I always prayed about it. I always thought prayer was the solution, and then I realized it wasn't. And so, yeah, there was a lot that I guess religious indoctrination did to me, and this is one of the particular aspects that I feel like a lot of people aren't vulnerable enough to admit. I wish, I yearn for some sort of, like, afterlife. Like, I do wish, you know, that I hope that there isn't, you know, just like death and that's it. Because, you know, when people talk about, and I made a previous video about this, there's people who talk about, you know, they suspect that there's, like, a reason why we came here, that we deliberately chose to come to planet Earth. I'm pretty sure a kid dying of leukemia believes that, you know, that they chose this particular future for themselves. Right? Like, it's so weird, you know, but anyway, I just wanted to talk about that for a second. Yeah, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really wish there was something else beyond this. And it doesn't have to be a heaven. Of course, I honestly don't think it's anything close to that. I used to think, you know, when I started deconstructing from Christianity, I used to watch a lot of, like, NDE videos. Of course, I'm still questioning those all the time. But I used to watch a lot of NDEs of people who were non-believers, and they would talk about, like, going into a different realm, right? Like, going into a different, you know, yeah, but that's the term, realm, and seeing their grandparents or their ancestors or their, you know, friends who had passed away, or their mother or father who had passed away, and it was like a different world to them, but they felt like they were at peace in a different world. Like, it's somewhat, of course, delusional, because it's somewhat like expecting a particular frequency, a particular emotion, that peacefulness, perfection. I feel like that's kind of what we're all hoping for, to a certain degree, to get out of this particular form of existence where we have to suffer. Like, we have this too, like, I feel like I like calling it like some form of, like, dualism, right? Like, or polarism. I feel like a lot of people use that term, where, you know, polar opposites need to exist in order for you to even acknowledge what the opposite is. And I think, yeah, I feel like a lot of people yearn for just the one emotion, which is happiness and joy and peace and love, and that's all they yearn for. And when I started deconstructing from Christianity, I fell down that whole rabbit hole, you know, going down NDE experiences, you know, spirituality, people telling things that they can't really prove, of course. But, you know, I like the feeling of believing that, and I kind of realize how religion thrived and has survived for a really long time, and why it might actually continue surviving, right? Like, even no matter how much rationalism, right? Like, no matter how much intellectual discourse we bring to the table, right? Like, disproving, like, a lot of these ideologies, I don't think it's going to disappear for that particular reason. Humans yearn for something transcendental, right? Like, humans yearn for something beyond this experience, and that's exactly why I feel like, of course, my brain's kind of wired to want that. And I somewhat am deluded sometimes, because sometimes I do believe in an afterlife. I sometimes would like, you know, I try to force myself at least to believe that this is not the end. But I feel like that's also delusional. You know, a lot of people, when they believe in the rapture, they think that you know, it doesn't really matter. Climate change, that just means Jesus is coming back. You know, like, I used to believe like, before I left Christianity, and then now that I left, now all of a sudden I gotta start caring about climate change. You see what I'm saying? Now I gotta care about our survival, because this is not the only, like, this is the only lifetime that we have, right? Like, this is the only lifetime that we get to exist in. You know, now we gotta make sure everybody survives, because there's nothing else. There's nothing else after this. You know, like, it just feels dreadful to say that, right? I can't say this with full conviction, of course, because I was highly indoctrinated, guys. I'm talking, like, I could quote every single fucking movie for you to understand how indoctrinated I am as a pastor's daughter. I was indoctrinated so badly, okay? I could name, well, one of the biggest movies, right? Fucking God Is Not Dead. I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one. If you're an ex-Christian, you know this. You know this movie. Facing the Giants, I think that's another movie. Fireproof, you guys probably know that movie. Like, I'm talking every single Christian movie. I'm talking even the Book of Eli, right? That's how indoctrinated I am, right? And so, yeah, just wanted to put that into perspective before a lot of people, of course, bash me for the video that I made previously about not wanting to take on any particular stance, atheism or theism. It could just be bias. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure, and I'm making a video about this, I'm pretty sure it has a lot to do with, I guess, epistemic standards and foundational axioms and presuppositions that we have to make before coming into these discussions. And I think that's exactly where we kind of see a clash. And I'm preparing my video, and so you guys are gonna check that out. And so yeah, I'm just gonna end the video here because I'm pretty sure it's gonna take too long. I'm not even gonna edit this video, you guys. I'm just gonna post it. Yeah. I don't know who else relates to this. I'm the only person who yearns for an afterlife as an ex-Christian. Am I? Am I the only person? I'm not sure. But yeah. Kisses. See ya.